You don't belong here. Some moments feel like normal days, until they shatter into something unforgettable. That afternoon, Alina Morales didn't plan to be noticed. She just wanted to celebrate something quietly, something personal, something only she understood. But fate had other plans. One act of kindness from a poor woman, one act of cruelty from a rich woman, and a phone call that would leave the entire boutique breathless. And when a certain man walked in, the room fell into stunned silence. Alina Morales was never one to draw attention. The kind of woman who blended into the background, who smiled politely, who folded her pain into her purse and carried it like an invisible accessory. She was 48 years old, brown hair threaded with silver. She wore the same well-worn flats she'd owned for 3 years and a dress she'd repaired more times than she could count. But that day was special. It was her late mother's birthday. And every year, Alina did something her mother always dreamed of, visited a place she never could. A place that smelled like luxury and looked like success. Somewhere elegant, somewhere far from the world Alina lived in. This year, she stepped into Aurum Luxe, a high-end boutique with gold-plated door handles and crystal chandeliers dangling from the ceiling like frozen fireworks. She could never afford anything here. That wasn't the point. She was here to try on just one beautiful dress, take a photo, and leave with a memory. It was tradition, a ritual, a tribute to the woman who raised her with grace, even when life offered none. The moment she walked in, the air seemed to shift. It always did in places like these. The scent of designer perfumes, soft music playing from hidden speakers, salespeople trained to greet with a smile that never reached their eyes. Alina Morales, she whispered to herself, you have every right to be here, just like anyone else. She walked slowly, fingers brushing the silk of a deep emerald gown. The fabric whispered luxury. Her eyes sparkled. It reminded her of the color of the leaves in the garden her mother used to tend, back when their world was smaller but filled with dreams. She didn't notice the eyes on her at first, but someone else did. From across the room, sitting in a plush chair sipping champagne, Valentina Crestwood raised one perfectly shaped eyebrow. She was the kind of woman magazines wrote articles about. Old money. A name that opened doors before she even arrived. Jewelry that glinted louder than her voice, and a deep, simmering belief. Some people just didn't belong. She watched Alina like a hawk circling prey. What is she doing here? Valentina muttered, not even trying to hide her disdain. A young sales associate, nervous, new, offered a weak smile. She's browsing, ma'am. Valentina scoffed. Browsing? In this store? In those shoes? Please. The words were meant to be overheard, and they were. Alina paused, heart pounding. She had been through worse. She had faced landlords who called her late at night, jobs that vanished without warning, and days when dinner meant choosing between food and dignity. But somehow this place, this sneer, hit harder than expected. She turned, slowly. I'm sorry, she said, her voice calm. Is there a problem? Valentina stood up. Every movement was calculated. Her designer heels clicked on the polished marble floor like an approaching threat. Yes, there is. She smiled sweetly, but it was all teeth. This boutique has standards. It's not a charity thrift store. You might be more comfortable somewhere, less refined. The room froze. A few other shoppers looked up from their champagne and handbags, sensing the beginning of a scene. The young sales associate's eyes widened, caught between customer loyalty and conscience. I see, Alina said softly. Well, thank you for your concern, but I'm here to try on a dress. Just like you. Valentina laughed. You think you can afford anything here? Honestly, this is why high society needs better filters. Anyone can just walk in and pretend now. That's when Alina did something she rarely did. She smiled. Not with her lips, but with her eyes. A quiet, tired smile. The kind you wear when you've been underestimated your whole life. She pulled out her phone. Not the newest model, But it worked, and scrolled to a contact. Her fingers didn't shake, not anymore. She had saved this call for emergencies, and though this wasn't quite one, it felt necessary. She pressed the button. "Hi, sweetheart," she said. "Could you come by Aurum Lux?" "Yes, that boutique." "No, no, it's fine. Just, I'd like you to see something." She ended the call and slipped her phone back into her purse. "Are you calling the police?" Valentina said mockingly. "Or your boss?" Alina didn't reply. Instead, she walked over to the emerald green dress and asked the associate, "Could I try this on?" The associate hesitated, then nodded. "Of course, ma'am. Right this way." 20 minutes later, the boutique's gold-plated doors opened with a soft chime, and the entire store went silent. A man stepped in. Not just any man. Gabriel Langston, CEO of one of the most powerful private equity firms in the country. A name spoken with both respect and fear in the financial world. Tall, broad-shouldered, every inch of him exuded confidence that didn't need to raise its voice. His suit, custom-tailored. His presence, commanding. But what shocked everyone wasn't who he was. It was where he went. Straight to Alina. His eyes lit up when he saw her. "There you are," he said gently. "You okay?" She nodded, smiling faintly. "Better now." Gabriel turned, his gaze sweeping across the stunned faces, and then it landed on Valentina. The color drained from her face. He tilted his head. "You must be the one who insulted my wife." "You wife?" Valentina stammered, her mask cracking. "You're married to her." He didn't answer her. Instead, he wrapped his arm around Alina's shoulder and addressed the room. "I've built boardrooms across 4 continents, closed billion-dollar deals, but let me tell you something. None of it means anything compared to the woman standing next to me." He looked at Alina with warmth. "She has more strength in one smile than most people gather in a lifetime. And if anyone here thinks worth is measured by clothing or bank accounts, then you've missed the entire point of living." Valentina's lips parted, but no words came. The silence was brutal. And beautiful. Not just a dress, but a statement. The silence after Gabriel Langston's words hung heavy in the air, like the hush of a courtroom just before a verdict. For a moment, the boutique felt like it had paused mid-breath. No rustle of silk, no clink of jewelry. Not even the gentle ambient music dared to continue. Valentina Crestwood, once regal and confident in her high heels and couture arrogance, now looked like she was shrinking under the weight of a reality she never saw coming. She had mocked a woman in worn shoes, and now stood face to face with a man who could buy the boutique twice over, and then close it just for fun. "Gabriel Langston," someone whispered from the far end of the room. Another shopper gasped. "Isn't he on the cover of Forbes this month?" But Gabriel didn't care for the whispers. His eyes were still locked on Valentina. Not with rage, not with arrogance, but with an expression far colder: disappointment. "I asked a question," he said softly, dangerously. "Did you insult my wife?" Valentina tried to find her words, but they were caught somewhere between her pride and panic. "I didn't realize. I mean, she didn't look like." "Like what?" Alina suddenly asked, stepping forward. Her voice didn't shake. It rang out with calm fire. It wasn't loud, but it was unforgettable. "Like someone worthy of dignity." Alina continued, "Like someone who shouldn't be touched by silk or walk on marble floors." Valentina blinked, clearly rattled. I wasn't trying to be offensive." "Yes, you were," Gabriel interrupted. "But don't worry. You succeeded." A few customers looked away, embarrassed for her. A pair of elderly women in the back shook their heads. One whispered, "Serves her right." But Alina wasn't finished. Because this wasn't just about her anymore. "People like you," she said, turning toward Valentina, "think class is in the clothes. That power is in the label. But I spent years watching women with worn-out wallets show more grace than anyone wearing diamonds." Valentina's face flushed red. Alina walked over to the mirror, still holding the emerald green dress she had tried on just minutes before. She looked at herself, quietly, thoughtfully, and then she turned to the young sales associate and asked, "May I speak to your manager?" The girl nodded, then hurried to the back. No hesitation. Moments later, a middle-aged man in a gray blazer stepped out. He had the air of someone used to calming fires, but the second he saw Gabriel Langston, his posture changed. "Mr. Langston," he said with a respectful half-bow. "What an honor, sir. Is there anything I can assist you with?" Gabriel nodded at Alina. "My wife is the one you should be speaking to." The manager looked surprised, then quickly turned to Alina. "Of course, madam. How may I assist?" Alina held up the dress. "I'd like to purchase this, but not for me. For another woman." The manager looked confused. "Oh, for her," Alina said, pointing at the young sales associate, the one who didn't mock her, the one who treated her like a human being from the start. The girl gasped. "Me? I can't accept that, ma'am." "You can. And you will," Gabriel said with a warm smile, "because kindness deserves recognition." The associate's eyes welled up with tears. "I've never worn anything like that. It costs more than my rent." Gabriel simply handed his black titanium card to the manager. "Put it on my tab. And give her an employee discount, with a promotion. If she's not managing in 6 months, this boutique isn't worth what you're charging." The manager's eyes widened, realizing this wasn't a threat. It was a promise. Valentina stood frozen. Her fingers clutched the handle of her crocodile bag, like it was a lifeline. "This is absurd," she whispered. "Just because you're rich doesn't mean—" "Ah, but it does," Gabriel replied coolly. "It means I've had power for a long time. I just rarely use it like this. But today, I'm making an exception." He stepped closer. "But you see," he added, "this isn't about money. It's about decency, about how easily you tried to humiliate someone, without even knowing who she was." Valentina's lips trembled. Gabriel turned to Alina. "Do you want her removed?" Alina shook her head. "No. Let her stay." That stunned everyone, even Valentina. "Let her watch how kindness wins," Alina continued. "Let her realize that even without you, I still would have stood tall. I didn't need you to fight my battle, Gabriel. You're here because you love me. But I was ready either way." Gabriel looked at her with pure admiration. "Of course you were," he said. "That's what makes you so remarkable." The boutique that changed. An hour passed. The atmosphere in the boutique had changed completely. Strangers came up to Alina, praising her. Some shared similar experiences. One woman admitted she had once been too afraid to enter the same store for fear of being judged. But now, Alina had shattered that fear, for all of them. The young associate, now smiling through tears, tried on the emerald dress in front of the mirror. The manager took photos, quietly realizing the boutique's next ad campaign just wrote itself. Valentina, on the other hand, remained seated in the corner. Her pride wouldn't let her leave. But her confidence had packed up and fled the moment Alina dialed her husband. When she finally stood to leave, she walked past Alina, but paused. "I didn't know," she said quietly. Alina looked at her, not with vengeance, not even with anger. Just quiet resolve. "You didn't want to know." That line hit harder than any insult. Valentina nodded faintly, then walked out. The boutique's door closed behind her. The moment felt like an ending, but it wasn't. Later that night, back home, Alina and Gabriel sat on the balcony of their estate overlooking the hills. The stars above them felt closer somehow. Alina wore a simple robe, hair undone, sipping tea. The green dress was packed carefully, ready to be delivered to the associate tomorrow. Gabriel leaned on the railing. "You were amazing today." "I just spoke the truth," she said. "Sometimes that's the hardest thing to do." They were quiet for a long time. Then Alina asked, "Do you think she learned anything?" Gabriel exhaled. "People like her. Some never do. But sometimes it's not about them. It's about the people watching," Alina finished. "The ones too afraid to speak. The ones who needed to know it's okay to stand tall." He nodded. "You gave them permission today." The viral ripple. Unbeknownst to Alina, a customer at the boutique had recorded the entire encounter, carefully, respectfully. No names, just raw footage of a woman standing against cruelty with nothing but calm dignity. By morning, the video would have over 4 million views. And though Alina hadn't sought attention, her inbox would be flooded with messages, some from strangers, others from women who had been judged, mocked, silenced, all thanking her. The next morning, Alina's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. But she hadn't posted anything. She wasn't that kind of person. She didn't need likes, shares, or followers to validate her. Still, curiosity got the better of her when her niece, Sophia, called with excitement bubbling in her voice. "Auntie, you're trending." "What?" Alina chuckled, confused. "I don't even know what that means." "Someone recorded the boutique scene yesterday. It's all over social media. They didn't show your full name, but people are calling you the woman in green. It's got millions of views." Alina froze. Her heart raced, not from fear, but from the sudden understanding that something private had become public. "Are people angry?" she asked quietly. "Angry?" Sophia scoffed. "They're inspired. You should see the comments. Women from all over are sharing their own experiences, being judged, shamed, dismissed. Your story is giving them the courage to speak." Gabriel walked in, phone in one hand, coffee in the other. He gave her a look and nodded. "Yours too?" Alina asked him. "Corporate PR just called," he said, half laughing. "I've been flooded with media requests. One outlet wants to call it the green dress moment. Another says it's the most powerful takedown of class arrogance they've ever seen." Alina shook her head slowly. "I didn't want a moment. I just wanted a dress." Gabriel leaned over and kissed her forehead. But sometimes the smallest stands make the loudest echoes. Meanwhile, across town, Valentina Crestwood sat in her penthouse living room, scrolling through the video on a tablet. Her jaw tightened every time she heard her own voice, venomous and entitled, echoing through the speaker. "Some people should know their place." She flinched. She hadn't realized how ugly it sounded until she heard it played back, millions of times. Her phone chimed. It was a message from her daughter, Celeste, a university student overseas. "Celeste, Mom, that video. It's everywhere. I'm embarrassed for you. Please take some time and think about who you're becoming." Valentina stared at the screen. For the first time in years, she felt something she hadn't allowed herself to feel. Shame. Back in the neighborhood, Alina was still processing everything when she returned to the community center where she worked as an administrator. She stepped into the modest, beige-walled building and was immediately met with clapping. Loud, heartfelt applause from children, parents, volunteers, and even the grumpy janitor who rarely smiled. A banner had been pinned up. "To our very own woman in green. Thank you for standing tall." Tears welled up in Alina's eyes. One of the mothers hugged her tightly. "I showed the video to my daughter. She used to be afraid to speak up when kids mocked her clothes. Now, she said she wants to be brave like you." Another volunteer chimed in. "You gave us all permission to believe we matter." Alina was overwhelmed, not by the attention, but by the realization that her simple act had awakened something deeper, a shared pain, a shared strength. But it was what she discovered next that would truly shake her, an unexpected letter. That afternoon, a manila envelope arrived at the community center. It was hand-delivered by a courier and marked, "Prague 8, for Alina Langston." Inside was a letter on thick, cream-colored paper, written in graceful cursive. "Dear Mrs. Langston, I was there the day you visited Aurum Lux. I watched everything unfold. I said nothing, though my heart screamed to say something. I'm ashamed that I didn't speak up. I am the mother of a girl who works 3 jobs and still gets mocked at school for wearing the same jeans every week. I've taught her dignity matters more than dollars, but yesterday, you proved it. Please accept this small token as a thank you. An anonymous admirer. Attached was a check for $100,000, made out to the Community Growth Initiative, the nonprofit Elena had worked with for years to uplift underserved youth. Elena stared at the check in disbelief. Her hands shook, not because of the number, but because it meant change. Real change. She looked at Gabriel. He was already smiling. I guess the ripples are turning into waves. A meeting with meaning. 2 days later, Elena received a call from the boutique itself. We'd like to formally apologize, the manager said, and we'd like you to be part of something bigger. Elena raised an eyebrow. Bigger? A partnership. A campaign, really. We want to feature women from all walks of life. A Dignity in Design initiative. You don't need to say yes, but we think it could matter. Elena paused, thinking. She wasn't interested in fame. But if her presence could change even one mind, maybe it was worth it. Only if you include the young woman who helped me, Elena said firmly. She gets the lead role. The manager didn't hesitate. Done. Back in the boutique. 1 week later, Elena returned, this time not as a ghost in the background, but as a guest of honor. The walls had changed. Photos of women of every background now hung in golden frames. Not just models, but mothers, teachers, nurses, assistants. The boutique had rebranded overnight. The young associate, now in charge of the boutique's diversity campaign, greeted her with tears in her eyes and a hug. I never thought someone like me would be seen in a place like this, she whispered. You were always meant to be seen, Elena replied. Some people just needed to open their eyes. She turned slowly, looking at the walls, the lights, the customers. And then she smiled, because she saw what her mother always believed, that elegance isn't about price. It's about poise, about grace, about knowing your worth without needing a tag to prove it. The truth she never told. Until now. The campaign took off faster than anyone had imagined. Dignity in Design was not just a boutique campaign. It became a movement. Women from across the country began sharing photos of themselves wearing what made them feel powerful, not what labels told them to wear, but what reflected their worth. News outlets picked up the story. Articles appeared with headlines like, "The woman in green who redefined luxury. Elegance is not a brand." The Elena Langston moment. For the first time in her life, Elena's inbox overflowed, not with bills or work emails, but with thank you notes. One message read, "I stood up to my boss today. Because of you." Another, "I took my daughter to try on her first real dress. Not because we could afford it, but because she needed to know she deserved to feel beautiful." Even Gabriel was surprised by the global ripple. "You were the spark, Elena," he told her one morning. The world was dry kindling, just waiting for someone to light the match. But behind Elena's smile, something stirred. A truth. A memory she had buried for years, and a person she had never spoken of. Not even to Gabriel. The letter that changed everything. It arrived on a rainy Thursday morning. Handwritten. No return address. Inside was a single sentence. "I saw you in the news. I never thought I'd see you again. I'm ready to tell the truth now. About your mother. And about you." There was a return phone number scribbled at the bottom. Elena stared at it for a long time. Her hand trembled slightly. Gabriel noticed. "Everything okay?" She hesitated, then nodded, though it wasn't entirely true. Just something old. Flashback. 29 years ago. Elena had been 19, working in a dusty little library during college, cleaning floors, shelving books, and skipping meals just to buy textbooks. One day, her mother collapsed at the kitchen sink. Stage 4 cancer. The doctors had been kind but blunt. There wasn't much time. And there definitely wasn't any money. In desperation, Alina turned to someone powerful, someone whose name she hadn't spoken in years. His name was Marcus Cavill, a wealthy businessman with a reputation for helping those in need and for expecting silence in return. He paid for the hospital bills, gave her enough to keep her mother comfortable for her final months. But in return, he asked only one thing. You disappear. No media, no contact, no questions. You sign this NDA and walk away. That's how this works. And Alina had agreed, because her mother's life had mattered more than anything else. She kept the secret, buried it, never told a soul, not even Gabriel. Back to present. That evening, while Gabriel was working in his study, Alina dialed the number from the letter. A voice answered, older, raspier. Alina. Yes, she said softly. Who is this? The voice took a breath. My name is Michael Cavill. I'm Marcus's son. Alina froze. I found the old records, he continued. My father passed away last year, and in his safe, I found everything. Letters, files, the NDA. Alina's heart thudded. Michael kept speaking. I need to meet you. There's something you need to know. It's about your mother, and something she did before she died. The meeting. They agreed to meet at a quiet coffee shop near the river. Gabriel insisted on coming with her, but Alina asked for this moment alone. Michael was tall, about 40, with tired eyes and a nervous smile. He slid a folder across the table. Inside were copies of letters, her mother's handwriting. To the man who helped my daughter when I could not. Thank you. But she is stronger than she knows. I only hope one day she will rise so far that she no longer hides from her own power. She does not know I wrote this. She still carries shame for accepting your help. But one day, I hope she will forgive herself. Alina's hands trembled. Michael leaned in. My father may have helped you, but your mother, she left a legacy. She wrote letters to foundations, built bridges between donors, quietly pushed your story forward, without ever asking for credit. She believed in you so much, she created a network behind the scenes to make sure you'd never fall again. He smiled. She wasn't just proud of you, she believed you would change the world. Truth and grace. Later that night, Alina finally told Gabriel everything. About Marcus. About the agreement. About the sacrifice. He didn't get angry. He didn't question her choices. He simply held her hand and said, you did what you had to do for love. That's the most powerful reason there is. They sat in silence, the kind that wasn't heavy, but healing. I think it's time, she said finally. Time I stopped being afraid of the truth. The final speech. A month later, Alina was invited to speak at the National Voices of Women Summit in New York. She almost declined, but then she remembered her mother's letters. She stepped onto the stage in a soft green dress, not designer, but custom-made by local women from her community center. She stood before thousands, spotlight shining, and she told her story, not just the boutique, but the hidden battles, the shame, the silence, the sacrifice, and the strength that came from all of it. She ended with this. I used to think power looked like a private jet or a luxury dress, but real power, it's standing in a room where you've been told you don't belong, and standing anyway. If you've ever been judged, shamed, overlooked, know this. Your worth is not for others to measure. It's yours to declare. The audience gave a standing ovation. Tears, cheers, a wave of unity. Epilogue. 6 months later, Valentina Crestwood resigned from every elite club she was part of and began volunteering at a shelter for young women. The boutique expanded its campaign globally, launching Elegance is Everywhere, donating a dress for everyone sold to women in need. The young associate, she now managed the flagship boutique. Michael Cavill created a foundation in his father's name, not to preserve legacy, but to fund women's education. Elena sits on the board. As for Elena and Gabriel, they didn't just survive the storm. They rewrote what power and love looked like. Sometimes the loudest revolutions start not with a roar, but with a woman in a green dress refusing to shrink.